Good morning. We are Team Fish for Africa. Honourable Minister Zikwane, your department has invited proposals for a 3-year, $1.6 million food solution that will contribute to the doubling of food production by 2040. We are here today to seek funding and partnership for an innovative community-based freshwater aquaculture system that is custom designed for both the African as well as South African context and capable of producing a sustainable protein source for less than 50% of the current protein market standard. We are sensitive to the department's need to create high impact with limited resources. The mandate of the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry has a complex and challenging mandate of advancing food security, job creation, economic development and transformation through innovative, sustainable, and inclusive solutions. Let's understand the context in which the department operates. South Africa is a country with high levels of household food insecurity. Let's visualize what this means. A 24-year-old rural individual walks into a store with $1.50 in his pocket, being the average daily grant that government has just supplied him with. He wants to buy a can of pilchards, but he realizes that he can't because the pilchards cost $1.52. We also have high and deepening structural rural unemployment. Mr. Minister, there are regions in our country where unemployment levels are in excess of 30%. And we have inefficient land and resource allocation. We have water scarcity issues. But as a result of our apartheid past, we have been left with structural land imbalances. The land reform process is slow and inefficient, and where individuals have been granted land, they lack both the skills and the capital to use that land productively. I'd like to ask Chris to take us through a more detailed contextual analysis. Karen will then detail our recommendation, and Robin will discuss the implementation, at which point I will chat through the financial feasibility of our project. Chris?
Thank you, Rolf. Right, so let's have a little look. That scenario that Rolf outlined for you earlier with the 23-year-old gentleman in the rural town, that's a scenario that's not limited to him. 23.1% of South Africa currently faces, as I'm sure you're well aware, Honourable Minister, severely constrained access to food. And that is inextricably linked to our poverty situation in the country. 45.5% of South Africans currently live under that critical $1.50 mark that Rolf spoke to earlier. And the conflation of these two factors results in a very, very troubling fact, which is that the poorest quartile of our nation spends fully close to 60% of their monthly income on food expenditure to feed themselves and their family. This is not a sustainable scenario. And that's hardly surprising when you look at the price of foodstuffs in the country. The two most popular forms of protein being whole chicken and pilchards, which Rolf spoke to earlier. And remember, 92% of our country buys and consumes pilchards on a regular basis. $1.52 now for a 400-gram tin of pilchards, and very close to that, $1.46 for chicken per 400-gram portion. And this is particularly intense in the rural regions. So 6 out of 9 provinces in South Africa currently face unemployment of exceeding 25%. And of course, as you and we know, that is the official figures. You can probably put an extra 10% on if we're looking at true unemployment, including those who have given up looking for work. And rural provinces like the Eastern Cape are particularly high, with very close to 30%, some regions in excess of 30%. And that's a strange phenomenon when you look at the actual country. In terms of agricultural suitability, we have this incredible belt here, which has got fairly very good climatic conditions, very, very fertile soils, and yet this is the province, all the provinces which are the poorest sit within this belt. So we have the breadbasket, and then we have the country's poorest in the same spaces. The reasons for that are twofold. First of all, most of the seriously efficient farming that happens in those areas is mechanized. It's highly capital intensive, very low on labor, and a lot of that produce goes out to the cities where people can afford to buy it. The second reason is because the remaining agriculture in those regions is subsistence-based, or it's land that has been redistributed through the country's land reform process, but is not being utilized effectively. And that is, of course, another concern we need to address. And now that we're talking about policy, let's go into the policy framework in a little bit more detail. We're very aware of the fact that whatever solution we provide you needs to work within the existing policy structures. This is not a time to dilly-dally and switch from policy to policy. We need to utilize what's there and utilize it efficiently. In addition to the DAF and the CASP program, there are other departments who have programs which we can tap into, and we can leverage the investment that we're asking you for today. One example is the Department of Trade and Industry's Aquaculture Development Program, which is looking for projects in the aquaculture space to fund small-scale projects. We want to utilize that. We want to utilize your Agri-CETA program, which is there to provide training and to support businesses who provide training in agricultural and aquacultural exploits. And there's a number of other programs there as well. And of course, we don't exist in isolation either. We also have a global context. We have the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. If we can align with its 7 core principles for responsible investments in the agricultural sphere, we will also get the eyes of the world and Africa on our programs here in South Africa and on you as a department to showcase the kind of work that you are doing, and ultimately access funds through partner institutions such as the African Development Bank and the World Bank. Why aquaculture? So we're here today to recommend an aquaculture solution, and the reasoning for that is very simple. By 2030, 60% of the world's fish supplies will come from aquaculture, and yet today, Africa contributes just 0.6% of aquaculture production globally. That means there's a massive gap. We believe it also means there's a massive opportunity. And why is aquaculture so popular, and why has it risen so meteorically? The reasons for that are, first of all, obviously very nutritious products, very, very good in essential fatty oils and micronutrients such as iron, which are very important in the African context, but also very efficient. So feed conversion ratio on average in aquaculture, 1.3 units of food to 1 unit of protein containing fish. In addition, just 1.5 liters of water per, 5 liters of water per kilogram. Compare that to soy, 230 liters of water per kilogram. So a very input efficient way to produce food. Africa, just to talk about briefly, obviously our food security is not in isolation of the rest of the continent. We have very high food insecurity north of us, and we need to address that too. So we need a solution that can provide protein in the African continent in general. And so a number of key issues we've highlighted. Don't have time to run through every single one of them at this point, but suffice to say that these are the 5 key issues: food insecurity, unemployment, land degradation, policy challenges, and capital constraints. We need a solution that addresses all 5 of these things in line with your mandate as a department, and we believe that we have that solution in Fish for Africa. I'll hand over now to Karen, who will show you just exactly how.
Thank you, Chris. So our solution is a freshwater catfish aquaculture model, which uses a cluster system which uses a cluster system and is located in the Kamdaboo region of the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. Why Kamdaboo? High in unemployment, high poverty rates, and a lot of land that's being underutilized. And so we think that's really perfect for this pilot. So our recommendation or solution is 2-pronged. One, in order to address food insecurity, we're producing a quality catfish minced product in tomato sauce at a price point of 87 US cents per 400 grams, which produces 70 grams of pure protein. It can feed 64,000 people and produce 2,840 tons per annum. Secondly, in order to address the issue of job security, we have an innovative modular and scalable production system. This is through, you can see the picture there, the farm and 5 satellite farms, the central farm and 5 satellite farms. The central farm is providing resources to the satellite farms. The satellite farms are located on reclaimed land in terms of redistribution initiatives that you have implemented. And that's creating a total of 875 new jobs. This has 5 different attributes. Let me take you through those. First of all, low-cost, high-protein product to address food insecurity. The cost of a product, how can we achieve 1.5 times cheaper product than chicken, which is highly popular in South Africa, particularly in the Eastern Cape? We're looking at a 87 cents per 400 gram product, which contains high protein, high iron, and high oils. Why are we doing this? To address the food insecurity issue. We're doing this with a dress-out ratio of 99%. That is the amount of fish that is used. 1% is discarded, which is the gallbladder, because of its bitter taste. 80% of this dress-out ratio is going to the primary catfish minced product, and 19%, which is the head, tail, and internal organs, are all going to a pet food product. So we're using most of the product. Catfish selection, it's high density farming. Also within 6 months we can reach full grow out. And RAS system, 15% of water it comes into the system monthly. That is being borrowed from local farms and returned to them as nutrient-rich water, which they can use as fertilizers. Secondly, job creation. I've mentioned 875 jobs are being created. Why? Because there's high rural unemployment rate, particularly within the Eastern Cape, but within the whole country. Satellite farms are being created on redistributed land, creating upskilling. Low capex, $1.6 million US dollars, which Rolf has mentioned. High labor input, which means we're creating jobs. Education and skills, we know in that area those are lacking, and we've got programs that are going to address that. Thirdly, sustainability. This is a highly efficient, low environmental footprint solution to deal with inefficient land and resource utilization. A lot of redistribution of farms is being given to farmers who don't necessarily have all the skills that are required to efficiently farm that land. So we would like to offer another solution with these satellite farms. I've talked about the 15% water consumption in the last slide. Also thermoregulation through low energy heat pump sources leading to energy efficiency. In the future, we would like to look, and outside of the 3-year term, we'd like to look at solar and insect feed. And this is really leading to a highly sustainable protein source. Fourthly, collaboration. You've heard from Chris about collaboration with your existing structures, with your policies. We really want to align with these. So in South Africa, we have a concept called Ubuntu. So together, we can do more. We want to optimize this land reform initiative, which you have, so really giving opportunities to the people who are taking ownership of this land. Funding facilitation, you heard from Chris through ADEP, and that's in particular with the satellite farms, and we want to assist them with this in providing security. Thirdly, augment with Agri-CETA, and that is in respect of training. Replicable and scalable model, low capital investment, and we really want to target the poorest municipalities. Let me hand over to Robin for implementation.
Let me quickly take you through the implementation strategy. We've got a comprehensive implementation plan. The first critical point is to reach the 22 tons that will come out of one tunnel. This is within 6 months of the capital. We will reach full production capacity in month 7 of the second year. That is reaching 2,640 tons worth of catfish. The central farm is set up with a hatchery, 5 production tunnels. As you can see, a production tunnel, a feed store, and the water recycling unit is situated on satellite farms. They will get the fingerling, which is bred out in the hatchery, supplied to the satellite farm, and collected from the satellite farm for processing in the central farm's processing plant. The processing plant looks as such. The catfish come in over here. We've got a primary and secondary line dividing the fish, and 14 gutting stations. The gutting stations are quite innovative. They're vertically orientated, which means when you gut the fish from the collarbone down, the guts actually flow through the fish, which make it really quick and simple to use. This processing plant is incredibly innovative, but I would rather take you through the flow of the implementation. The pre-implementation is all about your policies, what we need to deliver for the department. Phase 1 is getting you to that 22-ton phase, that first tunnel that rolls out the first tonnage of fish. Second phase is exploiting it to the 2,640 tons, which is produced by 220 tons per month. Rolf is now going to take you through the feasibility of this pilot.
Thank you, Robin. I'm sure you'll realize there's a fair bit of detail that we've sort of run through. There's a lot of detail, obviously, in the report, and we're very happy to answer questions on any aspect of detail that comes through both the recommendation as well as the implementation phase. Let's look at the financial feasibility. This is one of the key considerations to ensure that we can actually pay for and sustainably generate the protein and the product that we've promised you. Now, the full central farm capital breakdown is incredibly complex. It's detailed in the report, and I'm happy to answer questions on it. But what I want to chat to you a little bit more is the capital that is required to do what we have set forth. The central farm will be funded by the $1.6 million grant that we are seeking today. The satellite farm owners will be assisted. We will partner with them and assist with them to procure financing from the ADIP program under the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa. And the way we go about assisting them is to provide security against those loans for the period of the pilot project, which is 3 years. Let's have a look at the financial feasibility. Much better. Okay. I don't intend to walk you through the full financial model. It is an incredibly complex financial model with about 37 different variables that have been modeled. The most important key highlights over here is the following statistics. For the central farm, we project a 37% gross margin on operation with a net profit margin of 20%. Our IRR in year 3 is 16%. That is an investment grade returns in 3 years. But it will be a little bit optimistic of us to present a best case scenario. So what we have done is we've done financial scenario analysis around some of our key input sensitivities, one of which being the dress out ratio. A 5% drop in that dress out ratio results in the net profit dropping from 20% to 17%, just 3% sensitivity. So we are fairly confident of the financial resilience of our model. One further thing is the grant that you're issuing to us for 3 years. Our projections indicate at the end of year 3 of operations, we'll be in a position to fully return the $1.6 million grant to you. At that point, Fish for Africa operates as a sustainable, going concern, producing exactly the same outputs that the team has outlined to you today. Let's have a look at some of the risks. I just want to talk about one risk. There we go. So we've outlined some fairly ambitious production targets of 2,640 tons of catfish that the entire cluster of 10 production tunnels is able to produce in 1 year. There is obviously a risk that we do not achieve that 2,640 ton target given our decentralized production target. The way we mitigate this risk is through a very close partnership with our satellite farm operators. This involves ongoing, constant training and development, but also monitoring and assisting with production targets. Remember, we want to uplift people, and it's about imparting those skills, which is what is key to us. We are here today to talk about an initial pitch, a pilot phase project. But our ambitions lay way beyond just one farm cluster. We've got a heart for Africa. We are part of Africa. The food security issue in South Africa is dire. It is even worse throughout Africa. Our project not only aligns itself with the DAF mandate, but also the 7 key principles for responsible agricultural investment with the FAO. Your project could be the flagship to rolling out responsible agricultural investment across Africa. Tomorrow, with your help, just 36 cluster farms could feed 2 million people in Africa and provide 52,000 jobs. Today, now, in South Africa, 6 farms, which is our total rollout throughout South Africa, which we are planning, will feed 385,000 and provide jobs to 5,000 more. Mr. Minister, today, in accepting our proposal, you have the ability, with just $25 of capital investment, to feed one fellow South African for life. Thank you very much. I believe we're taking questions. We've also prepared a sample of the product, so you can actually see what it looks like and taste it. It's really good. In your time.
All right, we'll do that in our own time. Okay.
I'm very happy to be the guinea pig if you're a little bit skeptical. We checked with the Department of Agriculture, and because it's a sealed, sterilized, shelf-stable product, it's totally cleared. Yeah. I did volunteer to be quarantined, and they had a look at it. I cannot disclose information of that.
Wasn't on at that stage, otherwise they would have won.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was a great presentation and an interesting product. Look, anyway, so we're going to... this isn't working, so I don't care. It looks cool to hold it. So tell me, who owns the infrastructure for the satellite? So I understand that there's the hub and then there's the satellite farms. Who owns the satellite farms?
Okay, so thank you. So the central farm is in a private company, and the satellite farms will be in a trust. So the trustees of the trust will be from Fish for Africa, Ralph and myself, Ralph with a financial background, myself with a legal background, and then the owner of the farm. The beneficiaries of the farm will then be the owner and local community members. And then it's a cooperative-like structure in which the central farm is providing support to the satellite farms to help them achieve what they need to achieve in terms of production.
Okay, so what's the contracting mechanism?
So there'll be a contract between the trust and the private company in terms of what the central farm or the private company will supply to the satellite farm and what the satellite farm will exclusively supply to the central farm. And then obviously there'll be 5 trusts for each of the individual satellite farms, and they'll each have a contract with the central farm.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
If I could just add to that as well, just to clarify, and it'll help explain the financial model as well, the land on which the satellite farms are located would be owned by the individuals who form part of that trust. And that is part of the land redistribution. So there's a large amount of relatively small parcels of land that have been redistributed that individuals are sitting on, often without really much productive capacity. It's those parcels of land ideally that we'd be targeting for the satellite farms. So that takes care of the land consideration as well.
Just for purposes of continuity, maybe it's good to discuss what happens post-pilot. So whilst Karen mentioned myself and her would sit on the trust, that is purely for support and business input. So after the pilot phase, and we estimate the break-even of the satellite farms to be in year 4. At break-even, when they have paid back the ADAP loan, which is $36,000 US, we will withdraw as trustees because we no longer need it on a control factor, but we will never withdraw the support from the satellite farms. The contracting arrangement in which we purchase feed as well as fry from us, and we purchase the fish from them, and they purchase the feed and fry from us. That contracting mechanism will still continue. We simply will relinquish the control to the community.
Thank you. It was a really good presentation. Aquaculture can be really hard to do because of the science. So who's going to look after the science around the food supply? And, there's been lots of government funding of aquaculture production facilities where every single fish is killed or dies of a disease or something like that. So who manages the science around that? And also in the future, who manages the capital reinvestment? Because these things can be capital heavy and you need to be reinvested in time over and over and over again.
Okay, so we've surrounded ourselves with a number of technical experts. One such company is Aquaculture Innovations that have designed this recirculating aquaculture system. They are technical partners both in an advisory phase but also on site. You must remember, in terms of the report, we probably failed to mention this through the presentation, is that our pitch, Fish for Africa, is based on a live working model farm situated in the Karoo, in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. And this is something that is currently being done. So there are a number of control systems in terms of the management structure of who's responsible, both from a production perspective, within the hatchery, obviously have their own, as well as in the production tunnels for grow-out purposes. And then the processing farm we've also partnered with similar people. In terms of capital reinvestment, you're quite right. Capital investment in these projects can be a little severe. Going forward from this, in terms of 1.6 million, that is the exact amount that we need to launch a farm. It is not the ideal model of the farm we would like to launch there. An additional 800,000 would buy us total sustainable energy off-grid. So on an ongoing basis, we would seek, and this is the reason why we sought not to a profit-taking motive, but a slight commercialization motive, because in the event that we cannot secure government or para-government funding, we would like to be able to go to the softer, if you like, commercial space to seek commercial investment.
Can I add one to that as well? Sorry. I think it's also important to mention at this point that our selection of catfish as a species was very much informed by exactly the kind of considerations that you're talking about. So catfish are mouth breathers. They're far more resilient in terms of temperature range and water quality, and so they really are the perfect species for kind of a less defined, less technologically sophisticated environment. A very high density, yeah, that's right.
Can I go next?
Sure.
So this is a privately owned company, going to be a privately owned company?
The Central Farm, yes, will be a privately owned company.
And you're all going to be employed in it? I think you said that, did you? You'll all be employees in the company?
Yeah, we'll all be employees.
How much will you pay yourselves?
I speak under correction. I do have the model not too far from me, but I believe that the total salary bill of the entire farm. Now we must remember that an entire cluster will create indirect and indirect 875 jobs. 81 jobs, direct jobs, are directly employable on the payroll within the central as well as the cluster. The total wage bill for 81 employees, of which the majority obviously are far lower level workers, is 112,000 Rand, which is just about $90,000 a month. So, per month. Our US dollars, correct. Our total wage bill, being in heads of each areas, is approximately 40% of that number. So it's a fairly low salary. The reason why we're doing this is because we truly believe and we've got a heart for Africa and people.
And are you open at a later stage to taking equity? Would you take equity in?
We would definitely. The reason, again, to reinforce...
Sorry, offering equity.
Yes, of course. The reason why we have structured this, the finances and modeled it in this way, is for that commerciality. We would be very open to equity partnership. We would obviously seek South African previously disadvantaged individuals as a first prize in order to further enhance our empowerment mandate, which we believe is important in South Africa.
And what sort of percentage of equity are you considering offering?
Obviously, this is sort of a long-term decision. I'll need to chat with my board in terms of exactly what they'd be willing to give up. However, I would imagine an amount approaching 40% as a total maximum over a very long time period, which would be something that we'd be willing to relinquish. I must also make this clarification. We would like to operate more as a consultancy type of body. The idea is to set up a farm, impose the business model, offer the skills, and in time, even within the central farm, is to relinquish the entire farm over a period of, we estimate, between 5 and 7 years, back to the community that it operates in, and then raise additional financing, either through DAF or through the FAO, to go and start anew. And that's how we see, that is the value we see ourselves as offering. We don't want to hold on to this and become millionaires. That's not the intention.
And you may have said this and I've missed it, so I apologise. Is there a downstream, there's a cannery, and you've got relationships with a cannery and the downstream suppliers?
Sorry.
I've spoken a bit much.
Yes, you have. You can take a step back. Okay, so on the central farm, we have a processing unit. We've commissioned Wynland, which is a group of engineers in the Stellenbosch region in the Cape, to supply us with bespoke equipment that essentially allows us to process the fish incredibly efficiently and cheaply. The reason we have done that is that the conventional fish processing mechanisms are hugely expensive, and they're not suited to catfish. Catfish are very different. They come with a slime, for example, not scales. They're a single entity fish. They don't have a very big tail, all those sort of things. So the traditional machinery that's used within a fishing processing plant is not suitable for this project. But we've partnered with them. So they are with us on a sustainable rollout throughout South Africa post-pilot phase, and that is why they've been able to cut costs, because they believe in the model, so do we, so they can see it going future together. On the processing plant, we sell the fingerling, which are the small fish, to the satellite farms. We deliver it with the feed. We then collect the fish that has been grown out on the farm and bring it back to the processing, which means we house the distribution of the catfish. We then process it and sell it on. So we've got the sale agreement with the satellite farms, but everything that we do from processed perspective is the commercial viability of the project. Do you want to add anything to that?
The product isn't actually canned. It comes in 2 kilogram
it's
and
sachets.
400 gram retort pouches, which happens exactly at this stage here, in which it's cooked directly within the sealed pouch and it's shelf stable for 18 months.
I want to ask a question. Firstly, yum. Training. How are you going with training the farmers?
Thank you. Get some airtime again. Okay. So we've partnered with Aquaculture Innovations, which is an institute that looks at innovations within aquaculture. One of the key or critical factors of this company is that they're Agri-CETA accredited. Agri-CETA is kind of the accreditation body for tertiary education, which means that we are going to be training people from the time they enter the recruitment phase to the time they enter their satellite farm 4 months later. It means that we can upskill them in transferable skills, not just aquaculture skills, that if they don't make it into the hired phase or an ownership phase, it means that they can take those skills still and transfer them to other agricultural areas. Because of the clusters being within agricultural zones, they'll be able to transfer those skills wherever they go. There is quite a comprehensive workflow with regards to the training and development over 18 months that we house actually within the site. So we've allowed for offices and staff facilities. Within this, we've actually got a tunnel that trains people from the beginning stages to the end stages, as well as other sort of life skills. So we do HIV interventions, we do general business etiquette, so how the owners of the farms are then going to expand beyond our borders. So there are various phases throughout the project that look at training and development. We will never cut ties with an individual. They'll stay with us for the duration of the project.
Cool, thank you. Why'd you choose this product?
The catfish?
This product,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Okay,
do a lot of
we
things with catfish, but why this?
We did intense market research, and I think Karen is probably better posed because she dealt with it directly. So go ahead.
Yeah, so market research has been done on this product, and the product on its own, without the RAS system, which helps with the taste neutralization, and without the tomato sauce product, can have quite an earthy taste. So just selling the product as is not necessarily going to reach enough of a market that's going to want to consume this product. We're not just looking for food security and to feed them. We want them to actually enjoy this product. And that's a big part of what we were doing. So very much that is why we chose this format for the product in a tomato sauce base. Research has shown that that texture, that flavor, they looked at about 1,000 people, is really accepted by the market and they really enjoy it. So that would be the reasoning.
Can I ask me that as well? I think also, I'm the add-on guy apparently today, I don't know why. But it's also, of course, very much about the dress-out ratio. So I think essentially you've kind of got two curves. Obviously fillets is a wonderful thing to sell, but you're going to get a very low dress-out ratio on that. You're going to have to waste the rest. You can't just sell someone catfish bones for argument's sake. Whereas so you kind of have a sort of downward sloping curve in terms of taste, and dress-out ratio runs the other way. And this is really the optimal point. So we've got a good tasting product that's market accepted, and yet we achieve this incredible dress-out ratio overall of 99% with primary and secondary products. And that gives us the kind of efficiencies combined with the market acceptability that we're looking for in our contest.
Just a question about the water availability and how much water gets through these farms and how many satellite farms can you set up and are there sufficient water sources? And then also, what's the makeup of a satellite farm? Do you have to have line channels? Do you have to have line farms? Are the soil types clay enough to be able to support these things, or is there a lot of capex required to set up?
Let's discuss that in detail. So your first question was to do with the amount of water scarcity. We're talking Africa, South Africa. Fair enough. The 15% that we've been talking about, which is the RAS system replenishment of new water into the system, that will be sourced from existing farms in the area. So it's a water borrowing arrangement in which we get free water to top up the tanks. No water is really lost through the design of the production tunnel, which is a fully insulated, a 2-inch thick isotherm bonded between 2 layers of 350 micron plastic. So it's fairly humid within the production channels, with a temperature constant of 25 and 26 degrees, regardless of whether the temperature outside is 44 degrees, which it was at the time that I was at the farm, or in winter, if it's minus 7 degrees outside. It's the most incredible technology. So the water is trapped within the production system. Very, very, very low losses. We haven't been able to monitor what the true loss of that water is, but at the end of the month, all the mechanical filters are essentially washed out. And all the nutrients, as Robin mentioned, are then returned to the water, which is housed in the wastewater area, and then it is channeled directly back to both subsistence farmers as well as commercial farmers. So it's a free water in, enriched fertilized water out situation. And existing arrangements have been absolutely fantastic, because fertilizer, as Chris can tell you, is one of the most expensive things throughout Africa. The cost curve of fertilizer has absolutely blown up in Africa. So it's something that is quite attractive. To answer your next question, in terms of the construction of the channels, the construction of the channels on the central farm will be identical to those of the satellite farm. It is a structure which is approximately 25 to 30 meters long, approximately 8 meters wide, in a dome shape, with a steel construction, and I mentioned this insulated plastic layer. It is a cast concrete foundation, and all the tanks are cast concrete of approximate dimensions, of which there are 10 grow-out tanks per production production tunnel of 2 meters by 2 meters by 3 meters. And then the RS system takes the remainder of the space. The RS system is actually quite large. We've got pictures of it if you'd like to see. So that is the nature of it. It's not done in channel or in ground. The type of soil isn't critical because of the way it's constructed. $36,000 is sufficient budget to have that entire process built. In fact, the superstructure costs something ridiculous like $12,000. So extremely, extremely cost-effective in its construction.
Just to add, with regards to the water, to give you an indication as to where Camberdew is in the Eastern Cape, it's actually centered in the Karoo, which is a desert, essentially, in the center of South Africa. They drop borehole water. The farmers have a legacy of borehole water. So we take the borehole water straight from the ground, bring it into the water filtration system, and then kick the water back. So what we would have a binding agreement with all the subsistence farmers for a direct water exchange. So whatever we take from their boreholes, they get back in fertilized water.
Yeah, save the worst till last, but you've probably been told about me, so that's okay. No, not yet. Your fish in a tin is $12.42 a kilo. Chicken, I think you put on your slides, $3.29, and you've designed this as an affordable product for low-income earners.
Sorry, you said the price of our product per 1
equals $12.42 a kilo for your 70 grams of protein.
So that's a pure protein you're referring to, or of product?
Yep. A protein. What you've stated on your tin, 70 grams of protein. You're selling it for 87 cents per
let's
tin.
just maybe clarify that. So the 400 grams of product contains
330 grams of tomato sauce and 70 grams of fish.
Not fish, no. So if you break it down into its component analysis of carbohydrates, pure protein, and all the other components, 70% will be the full protein. So just as a comparative, beef is in the region of?
So maybe you should go back to the comparative slide.
Sure.
If you don't mind. I think that just puts it in.
I think this is a critical point that.
The prices that we put in on the stuff.
There we go.
So the prices that we had up front are, let's see, go back. So that's okay.
Excellent.
So this is, thank you. Okay, so this is a 400 gram tin at 87 cents, delivering 70 grams of pure protein. And then of course there's two ratios in there. There's a ratio of protein to non-protein within the fish, and then the ratio of fish to source. So but once those two ratios are applied, you get a 70 to 400 ratio of pure protein delivery. And that's obviously 400 grams, so that's 87 cents. The comparative, am I making, there we go. There we go. Okay, I think it's kind of, yes, there we go. All right, good. Yes, so the comparative is over here, which is, so it's $1.46, and this again is per 400 grams. So we're looking at 400 grams of actual product to 400 grams of actual product. Here it's $1.46 for whole chicken and $1.52 for pilchards. That's 400 grams. So the pilchard, for instance, that would be in a tin, 400 grams also in a tomato sauce. So it's a comparative product. Yeah.
What we've given you today here is the minced catfish without tomato sauce. So that product will be placed in a tin, 70% by volume, that would go in a tin, 30% would be the tomato, and that would be the 400 gram product serving, of which the total nutritional analysis is 70 grams of pure protein.
Excellent, thank you. Pilchards, number one item.
Yes.
Didn't say catfish, it says pilchards, the number one preferred.
It is.
So you've done taste testing where they accept the taste, but will they accept that they don't need pilchards anymore, they want catfish?
So ultimately, we believe that it's down to supply and demand and price in the market. So it is a price sensitivity thing. The reason that pilchards are so popular, first of all, they used to be cheap. So there's a bit of a lag in terms of the fact that the price has gone up due to sort of overfishing. And people are sort of, their tastes are now accustomed to it. But the other reason it's popular is it's quite a rich taste. So a small amount added to some millie meal and some spinach, for instance, creates a fairly nutritious meal. It's tasty and it's good for the family. And it's sort of a 400 gram tin will sort of provide for the family of four. And so what we were looking for with this particular product is something similar, where you've got something rich, quite tasty, quite sort of nourishing, which animal protein does, much better than vegetable protein, which you can substitute or you can add in and supplement your spinach and your maize meal to actually create something that's got essential fatty acids, iron, zinc, and some of the different micronutrients that create actually a good nutrition profile.
Okay. You mentioned you're located in the desert. To me, that sounds like you've got enormous logistics on your output requirement, but I suspect there's no catfish food located in the desert. So how are you overcoming the feed source, and how are you overcoming the logistics out?
It's interesting that you should say that, because when I first heard about this model, I thought exactly the same thing. Where do we get the feed from? Because there's an enormous amount of feed that's required for our operation. As it happens, Kamdaboo, or the city, the town of Gaafrenet, happens to be the headquarters of a major feed manufacturer in South Africa. And the exact distance from door to door is 8.5 kilometers from the farm. And it was chosen as a pilot location because that is the one thing in terms of inbound logistics that will substantially increase the cost. So we've located ourselves very close to a feed distributor.
Excellent. And finally, there's always going to be a finally, you made a statement that if we can align with the funders, have you?
I believe we have. There's a certain mandate that the funders are looking for in terms of what they would like to achieve. Not all of those things are monetary. They're looking for some of the softer, more impactful things environmentally and socially. I believe what we've outlined here is something that mass feeds people, not one or two niche. It feeds 65,000 per cluster, 65,000 people in South Africa. But further, it creates jobs, it does so in a sustainable manner, and it does so with financial feasibility. I believe that that is what an arm like the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry would be looking for in terms of a partnership arrangement.
Thank you.
Nothing more, Tom? You good?
I think we might
yeah,
be
we're
out
out
of
of time anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's how it works. I'm the boss of it, so it doesn't matter. So no, thank you. Yeah. We're good. So thank you very, very much for a fabulous presentation. I think you've done a great job, and good luck. And enjoy the dinner tomorrow night. Tonight.
Tonight.
You can have one tomorrow night too if you want.